Hi, I'm Emily. Welcome to episode 23 of Holding the Sticks, a hockey themed fiber arts podcast. Hi, everyone, and welcome to my living room here in the Blue Ridge Mountains of North Carolina. It's been a while. It's good to be back. I thank all of you for your patience, waiting for me to get a new episode out. Life has just been a little bit crazy, but I should start at the beginning and say my name is Emily, and you can find me on Ravelry as Shanti Dragon and on Plurk and Twitter as Emily3022. So that's where you can reach me, and you'll also see an email address at the end of the podcast in the credits. Like I said, it's been a little while. It's been several weeks since I've podcasted. Um, just kind of hit the wall, life gets busy, and I'm a little bit of an introvert as it is, and I just kind of hit the wall. I needed a little bit of a timeout. So I'm very thankful to all of you who have been private messaging me, plurking me, and just checking in on me. I appreciate that. I've been doing just fine. I just needed to take a few weeks out. So, but I'm back. Yay! And I have show notes today, so you'll see me looking down. I know I got away from doing that for a while, but I think, especially since it's been a while, it'll be good for me to have an outline to follow. So, um, I'm going to make a few minor changes with the podcast, and possibly a big change with the podcast too. Um, First of all, I am going to move the chatter section of the podcast to the beginning, and I'm going to do away with the post-game chatter. I think by far the segment that people are not interested in the podcast is the hockey talk, which is the third period. If this is your first time watching, this podcast is done in three sections or three periods, just like a hockey game. And the third is the last one. So that way, the majority of you who don't want to listen to the hockey talk can just watch the first two periods and then not have to worry about skipping over the hockey talk to get to my chatter stuff. So I'm going to try that for a while, see how it works out. I'm also making the switch, and I think I already mentioned this last time. I'm making the switch from monthly or bi-monthly knit-alongs or craft-alongs to a quarterly craft-along so that I can offer a better prize. So that will start with this episode, and I will talk more about that in the first period. I'm also going to start, or I'm going to restart doing show notes on the blog. There may not be links on the show notes, but I think it's helpful for folks to see what I'm saying if they just want to check and see and don't want to rewatch the whole episode to figure out what pattern I had knit or something like that. You can at least look at the show notes and find the name of it. So that's the next little change. And of course, the one that you've all been hearing about for some time now, if you watch other podcasts, is the Blip issue. As you all know, this podcast is hosted on Blip. I also upload it to YouTube. The short story is that Blip is starting to phase out podcasts and is, I guess, going through and booting us out of their servers. They give you like a 14-day notice, I think it is. I have not got a notice yet. I have not been kicked off of Blip yet, but I know it's probably only a matter of time. So that leaves me with the decision of what to do and how to host the podcast from here on out. One thing I know for sure is that I will continue to upload it to YouTube, and I always link that in the show notes. But YouTube, as most of you probably know, does not play nice with iTunes or Downcast. You cannot create a feed with a YouTube video. And the major problem is that the sites that do host videos and do play nicely with iTunes and Downcast are kind of pricey. So I am looking into my options. I don't have a lot of extra um, income to throw into the podcast. As much fun as I have with it, I may wind up having to go YouTube only, um, unless I can find something under $10 a month that I can do. So I don't mind going all YouTube, but I know a lot of you depend on iTunes and Downcast for your podcasts. Unfortunately, unless I win the lottery, that's just going to have to be the way it is for now. I will do my best to find another option, and I am pretty good at finding workarounds if they exist. When I first started this podcast, I was trying to do that and had no luck. So I'm not very optimistic about finding a workaround, but if I can find an affordable option, I will take it. And I'll do the best I can for you. I know it's a pain. I used to use iTunes as well, and what I do, this may be helpful to those of you who are depending on iTunes or Downcast. Um, you might hear the thunderstorm going on. It's been going on for days. I don't even notice it anymore. Anyway, what I do to keep up with the podcasts that I watch is I use a reader called The Old Reader. And what it is it's a feed of blogs. So anytime, if you subscribe to a blog, anytime that blogger puts up a new post, then it shows up on my feed. And so I've got podcasts in there, I've got hockey blogs in there, I've got, just regular knitting blogs on there, and all kinds of things. So I can just scroll down and, watch them in order or whatever I want to do. There's one called Feedly as well that I've been hearing a lot about, and that might be more your speed. I checked it out and I had trouble figuring out how to make it work. So I'm sticking with The Old Reader. But anyway, that is where I am with the whole blip issue. Until they kick me off, things will remain as they are. As most of you know, I never did get iTunes to accept me for the directory, but I did figure out how to help you all add me manually to be updated in your iTunes or Downcast. So, okay, I think that's all I have to say about the whole blip issue. So let's get into the pregame report, and that is what I'm going to call my chatter section now, the pregame report. And it's not going to be super long. I'm hoping this episode won't be terribly long, but with all of this stuff going on, and as long as it's been since I podcasted, it might be a long one. But as far as the pregame report and all of the things that have been going on, let me give you a quick update on Mom. She had her final chemo treatment about 4 weeks ago. And this coming Thursday, the 11th, she will have her surgery. So she's having a double mastectomy. The good news is that when they went to measure her tumor on her last chemo treatment, it wasn't there anymore. It's completely gone. Woohoo! That's awesome news. However, the type of cancer she has, they have recommended she do a preventative mastectomy, followed by 6 weeks of radiation daily. And then for the next year, she will be having treatments with a drug called Herceptin. So this has been touted as a miracle drug, and thank goodness for it, but we are hoping and praying that Mom tolerates it much better than the chemo drugs that she was getting. From all I've heard, it is much better tolerated by most patients than chemo drugs. So keeping our fingers crossed, right? Good thoughts and prayers and good vibes are always, always welcome. So that's what's going on with Mom. I'll be going down there next weekend, so probably no podcast next week, but I hope to be back the week after that. So the good thing that's really happened, or one of the good things that's happened in the last several weeks is, I don't even remember if I've mentioned my car troubles on the podcast, but I know I might have said something on Plurk. Anyway, I have been driving a 2000 Saturn for, well, we bought it brand new in 2000, so for 13 years. We love our Saturn, absolutely love it. Loved it from day one, we still love it. However, last summer the air conditioner failed. No big deal, especially when you live in a place like where I live here in the mountains where it stays pretty cool most of the year. You just roll down the windows, right? Well, this year, this summer, the windows failed and will no longer roll down. So we talked it over and discussed it and decided it was time to buy a new car. Now, we live on a pretty tight budget, so that was a big thing to think about. And, you know, we did all the math and all the calculations and figured out that if we really, really scrimp, that we could probably afford a little Chevy Spark, or maybe, you know, maybe a Cruze if we really tightened up. So we were starting to look into that, and the week before I was planning on going to dealerships, my dad called and said, I'm buying a car, and I'm going to buy one for you too. So, just out of the blue, he actually had no idea about the car either, that we were about to go looking for one. He just knew that my car was old. So, to make a long story a little bit shorter, he wound up, after looking at several used vehicles, he wound up buying us a brand new Subaru Impreza hatchback. To say that my husband and I were blown away is an understatement. It couldn't have happened at a better time. I never in a million years would have expected that, but I'm so, so, so thankful that I have a car now that I don't have to worry about it breaking down, especially when I'm driving to see mom and doing other various, you know, we kind of live in the middle of nowhere here. If we want to go to a city, it's a 2-hour drive in whichever direction. So it's just so nice to have a reliable vehicle now. And every time I drive it, I still think it's going to turn into a pumpkin. So we named the car, which is a Subaru, like I said, we named her Holly, which is short for Hallelujah. So there you go. That's my good thing that happened. And other than that, I've been working. Work has been really good. It's been picking up. It always does in the summer. So I'm tired but happy at the end of the day, and I've got a schedule such that I don't get too tired. So that's good. The weather has been crazy. I don't know how many days it's been raining, but it has been raining and raining and raining and raining and raining for days and days and days, and there's flooding, and our basement is flooded, but it's a normal thing for us. It happens when it rains like this. There's a drain in our basement, and it pretty much takes care of itself. However, it seems a little worse this time, and we may need to investigate what's going on with that. However, when it rains for days and days and days, I guess that's just what happens. There's standing water in places I've never seen it before, and we had a little bit of sunshine this afternoon, but not enough to dry everything up. So, you know, prayers for that would be great too, and good thoughts and good mojo to make the rain stop for a little while, let things get dried up a bit. The biggest bummer is our house has spring-fed water. It's gravity-fed, which is really cool, and it just comes up out of a spring. And the fact that it's gravity fed means that the power can be off and we still have water. The problem is that when it rains and rains and rains and rains and rains like this, I'm not sure why, but the water gets cloudy and dirty. So right now we are having to drink bottled water, and that's always a bummer. We have a filtration system on the house, but when it gets like this, the filter can't keep up. So We just play it safe and drink the bottled water. And besides, when the water looks like that, you just don't want to drink it. So anyway, that is it for my pregame report. Let's finally get into some fiber arts, shall we? Oh, and I thought you guys might want to know what shirt I'm wearing. I always watch podcasts and I can see like the top of your t-shirt and I'm like, what is that? And I know this is kind of a different looking one. So this is actually a t-shirt from one of the cons that my husband and I go to. This is from RCFM, Rocket City Fur Meet. It was in 2011. My husband was one of the guests of honor for that con, and he did the artwork for the shirt. Let me come down here just a bit, and you can see. Here it is. Just happens to be the shirt that I was wearing today, and I decided I better just hop on the horse and get podcasting again. So that's what I'm wearing. Let's get into the first period and talk about some developing play, shall we? I have two projects that I'm currently actively working on, and I have a bazillion projects that I have finished since the last time I saw you. Unfortunately, most of the bazillion finished objects are no longer in my possession, so I'm going to have to show you pictures of them. Either that or they're in the laundry or whatever. But let's start at the beginning, shall we? With the developing play and what's on my needles. I have been working mainly on the Knit Sampler Afghan by Coats and Clark. I'm using a Red Heart soft yarn in several different colorways, and I'm using a size 8 US 5mm needle. I've finished three more squares, and I'm working on a fourth. So let me show them to you. Have to make sure they're right side up. Here's one. And this is in the berry colorway, Berry. And then I have this one. Let's see here. It's upside down. That is in the teal colorway. And this one was fun. It was done with slip stitches. It's not Fair Isle, it's just one color for each row, but there are slip stitches that make this pattern on here. Isn't that cool? And that is the berry colorway and the grape colorway. The colors are a little muted, which is just to be expected because it's so dreary and rainy here. So those are the three that I've completed, and I'm currently working on this one in the berry colorway yarn, and it'll be diamond lace. Let's see if I can get that stretched out somewhat so you can see. You get the general idea. So there is that. I have three more, including this one, before I have the blanket finished. So I was going to do a double-sized blanket. I haven't decided for sure if I'm going to do that or if I'm going to do 2 blankets instead. So I'll have to figure that out. Because it's coming out to a pretty good size as it is. The other project I'm working on is just a pair of vanilla socks. And I'm sorry if you can hear that hound dog barking in the background. Nothing I can do. I did figure out his name, though. We found out his name is Roger. Interesting name. Roger. Maybe because he says ro, 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 ro all day long. I don't know. Anyway, this is my vanilla sock that I'm working on. And I will tell you more about the yarn I'm using when I get into the Spinorama. This is hand spun yarn. But I'm using a US size, I don't remember, I think it's a 1. Yeah, it's a 1 or 2.5mm needle. And I just do a regular toe with Judy's Magic Cast On. And I do a short row heel. and it's just plain, and then I'm doing a little ribbed cuff there. No big deal. The one interesting thing about these socks is this is 100% merino, superwash merino wool. And so to reinforce the toes, I'm using a spool of sewing thread. Let's see if I can find it in here. So I just use this spool of, I believe it's a nylon thread, just to give it a little more strength. I use it in the toe and in the heel. And I've done this before and it seemed to work really well. So, and of course this is living in my wonderful mustache bag that Jenny gave me. Thank you again, Jenny. So that's all I have been actively working on this last several weeks. Now for what I have finished. Let me turn the page of my notes here. Okay. I believe the last time I saw you, I was working on a pair of vanilla summer socks with the Wendy Happy bamboo yarn. And I finished those. They are in the Aquarius colorway with those same needles as before that I just showed you, the size 1 2.5 millimeter needles. And those are finished and in the laundry because I've worn them already this week. I then started and finished another pair of vanilla summer socks with Peyton's stretch sock yarn. That's the yarn with the cotton and the elastic and wool blend. And those I also wore this week, so they are in the laundry. But I have pictures of both of them. So here are the pictures of my two pairs of finished vanilla summer socks. I also finished another chemo cap for Mom. This was for summer. As it turns out, she was cold all the time anyway, so the hat that I finished, this particular hat, won't get a lot of use unless she's out and about outside. She's starting to feel a little bit better now, so hopefully that'll be more often that she'll be out and about. It is the lace cap, that's all one word, by Adrienne Robson. That's Adrienne Robson, excuse me. I used the leftovers from that first pair of socks, the Wendy Happy in the Aquarius colorway, to knit it, and it's available for free on Knitty, so, or you can find it on Ravelry as well. And that is the lace cap, all one word. And here's a picture of that. And the last finished object, I think this was the last one, I hope I'm not forgetting anything, is the Ito shawl by Kitman Figueroa. And this was made with the bamboo pop yarn, the cotton and bamboo blend yarn. And this was kind of a funny story. Let me show you the picture of the finished object real quick here. And that pattern was given to me by Marlisha, Lady Furnico on Ravelry. Thank you so much for that. It was a joy to knit, even though I completely messed up. And let me tell you how. The pattern was written for a fingering weight yarn. I used a sport weight yarn. I figured that's alright, I want a bigger shawl anyway because Mom really wants to wrap up in it, right? So, the first instruction in the pattern is to use, there's two sizes of needles listed in the pattern, a larger one and one that's 2 or 3 sizes smaller. I can't remember the needle sizes now, I'm sorry. But, so the first line says cast on, I think it was 300, it was a gazillion stitches, cast on a gazillion stitches with the larger size needle. And I thought, oh, my brain just decided, oh, cast on with the larger needle and do the lace with the large needle and then switch to the small needle for the garter stitch part. No. I knit the entire lace part of the shawl with that variegated yarn before I really looked at the pattern and figured out that that larger needle was just for the cast on, not for the lace. I should have switched immediately to the smaller size needle. So not only did I use yarn that was bigger than the pattern called for, I also used, and I had figured out, before I started, I had figured out what needle size to use with my sport weight yarn. And I'd gone up from that to get the larger size needle. So I think I wound up knitting this shawl in a needle size like 3 sizes or 4 sizes bigger than it should have been. But anyway, I decided to go ahead and finish it, obviously. And I'm glad I did. It turned out huge. It's enormous, as you saw in the picture. It covers the entire back of my mom's sofa. But she loves it because it's big enough that she can really wrap up in it. So it turned out well. And I think it's pretty too. I think it turned out just fine. But it was one of those heart-stopping knitter moments. Like, oh my gosh, what have I done? But all's well that ends well. I have a little bit of Spinorama. I'm looking here real quick. Things might get a little bumpy here. I finished the Into the World Merino Superwash Merino, the 4 ounces for the Knittables podcast spin along. Spin it out, Emily. The Into the World Superwash Merino for the Knittables podcast spin along. That's what I finished spinning. I did a super fine, for me anyway, single, and I Navajo plied it to keep the colors all together. And here's a picture of the fiber to start and then the finished yarn. And then I just showed you the sock that I'm making with that. Let me grab it and show you again. It came out to about a fingering weight. It's a little heavier than fingering in some spots, but that's the beauty of hand spun in my opinion. So I love the way the sock is coming out. And this is how the rest of the yarn looks in a cake. So gotten all discombobulated. There we go. Not the most accurate representation there, but that's pretty accurate there. So I'm loving that. I'm almost done with the first sock. As you see, I'm doing the ribbed cuff here. Maybe another inch to go of that, and then I'll cast on the second sock. And I might have enough left. This is a lot of yarn, let me tell you. I might have enough left to do a hat or some fingerless mittens or something. So was super happy with that. That was my first time spinning Into the World fiber. It was wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. Highly recommend it. I would love to get my hands on some more. And since I finished that, I went ahead yesterday. Hang on a second. I have to go get it. Actually, I'm just going to scooch you back here. Pardon any messes that you see. I'm spinning some Greenwood Fiberworks Polworth in the Calypso colorway. Pardon me for bending out of screen there. Hopefully that'll refocus here in a second. There we go. So this is what it looks like before it's spun up. It's got these wonderful shades of aqua and purple and green and brown. It's another little ball here. I divide it up into 1/2 ounce little chunks. And I have some on the bobbin. Let me see if I can show you the bobbin without taking it off the wheel. Making everybody seasick, I'm sorry. So there it is. That's what the bobbin's looking like right now, and that's very washed out. These are very deep jewel tones. But you saw it better with on the fiber, I think. If you get seasick, don't watch this for just a second. There, that's a little bit better of a representation, although there's some bright plummy purple right here. That's like a, not plummy purple, that's more like a grape jelly purple. So you know how hard it is for cameras to pick up purple. Okay, let me get you back here. I'll probably edit all this into little pieces. Watch out, Kelly. Okay. Get myself together here. Right. So that's all the spinning. Oh, and with that one, I am trying something new. I have the Spinner's Handbook of Yarn. Is that what it's called? That book everybody reviewed about a month and a half ago. The big reference book for spinners. Spinner's Book of Yarn Designs. I think that's what it's called. Anyway, I read through that, just the beginning parts, to see if there were any hints or tricks or tips or anything. And I decided I would use a reference card this time. And what I did was I decided how I wanted to spin my single, and I cut a little off and taped it to the card, and then I let it, I'm going to make this a 2-ply. I'm planning on spinning this Calypso fiber as a 2-ply and let it barber pull. So I just let it ply back on itself, and I put that on the card. Maybe it'll focus. Maybe it won't. It's not going to focus. I don't know why. Oh, there we go. Not that it matters that much anyway. I'm sure you get the general idea. But anyway, what you do with this is you, as you're spinning, every now and then you can stop and compare your single to this and make sure you're staying about consistent with it. Because I don't know if you're like me, but if you are like me, you tend to change as you go along. I tend to spin thinner and thinner as I go along. Or if I get bored, I get thicker and thicker. So this is helping me hopefully stay more consistent. And I'm hoping to get a very consistent yarn with this one. I'll tell you how that works out for me. So that is it for Spin-A-Rama. One last bit here in the first period is a little bit of Rec League talk. Now, I was very remiss in the April, May, June craft along that we had. I had the finish along going. Remember, you could finish any project that you had started before April 15th. I think that was the date. And it was originally supposed to end with the end of May, but then I extended it to the end of June, but I never remembered to, and I didn't even realize this until today, honestly. I never changed the title of the knit along thread to reflect the June part. But anyway, I went ahead and drew the winner for that now that it's 2 weeks, well, about a week into July. I'm sorry, y'all. Life has just been crazy. But I did the drawing, and I did a random number generator, and you know, in my craft along threads, I encourage chatter or whatever, and I just generate numbers until I land on a finished object that qualifies. There were a few finished objects in that thread that were started after the start time, so maybe you know, you're supposed to finish something you started before April 15th. So things that were started after that, I just didn't count them if I landed on them with a random number generator. So no dramas or anything. I just, you know, looked at them, and if I could tell when they were started. Anyway, I'm just babbling on, and that dog is driving me crazy. Okay, so I drew a number. There were 55 entries, I believe, and I did the random number generator, and I had to try about 5 or 6 times before I landed on a post with a finished object that qualified, and it finally landed on number 4, and that was Polly81, who hosts the Polly Knits podcast, and that was for his felted clogs that he had started back in December of 2012. So congratulations, Polly. Give me a private message or private plurk or however you want to go. Let me know if you would rather have a Ravelry pattern for $5 or less, and let me know which pattern it is, or if you would rather have one of the 2 sets of stitch markers that are shown on the thread on the group. So get in touch with me. And that brings us to the new craft along that I'm going to host for the second quarter of the year. Third quarter? Third quarter. I know what I'm talking about, really. For July, August, and September, I am going to host a mitten, glove, fingerless mittens craft along. I'm going to call it the Warm Hands Hoedown, y'all. So, everybody cast on some mittens or some gloves or some fingerless mittens and get those finished by the end of September for a chance to win, drum roll please, a $25 gift certificate to Etsy. So, I'm excited. I'm excited. I've been wanting to knit some mittens forever. Try and say that 5 times fast. I've been wanting to try and knit some mittens forever. And now I'm finally going to do it. Maybe even some gloves. Now this can go right along, and I haven't talked with Vicki about this. The Heartland Knits podcast is doing a craft along for felted mittens for a homeless shelter up near her. And if you want to knit some felted mittens, you are welcome to double dip on my podcast. You may want to check with her if it's okay with her. For prizes. I would love to see some of those as well. So I might try my hand at that. I've never felted anything before. That's the Heartland Knits podcast, and it's I don't know if it's a certain pattern or if it can be any kind of felted mitten. But she lives in Wisconsin and it's cold up there, so that's why she wants the felted ones. But for my knit along, you can knit any kind of mittens, any kind of gloves, or any fingerless mitts or fingerless gloves. I will draw a line. The things that you knit must have a thumb hole of some kind, so nothing that's just a wrist thing. It has to come up over the hands too. So I hope you all have fun with that. I am so looking forward to seeing your finished objects. I will start a thread just as soon as I can, and we'll get that going. I believe that's finally it for the first period. I am such a blabbermouth today. Let's get into the second period. Alright, are you ready to hit the training room with me? It's time for the second period, and that is the training room where I talk about my fitness journey, and sometimes I'll give tricks and tips for self-care for knitters and other crafters. I am a massage therapist by trade, and I'll talk about that sometimes as well. Today it's going to be all about the fitness, and I'm going to keep it pretty quick, just because I went on so long with the other parts of the episode so far. I've been running. This is good news. As you know, I struggled a lot with weather and had to spend a lot of time on the stationary bike. I still am on the stationary bike several times a week, but I'm also running several times a week. I'm so happy. I am on week 6 of Couch to 5K. Had to repeat that final day a couple of times, and the last time was this morning. That is where you run 22 minutes without stopping. And I didn't make it the first time around. I had been sick, and well, several things went wrong, and I just couldn't push through. But today I did it. I ran all 22 miles or 22 miles, right? 22 minutes without stopping. I don't think I'll ever run 22 miles without stopping. I should never say never, because a couple years ago I would have laughed if you told me I'd run a 5K, and I've run a 5K now. So, ran 22 minutes this morning, plus 5 minutes walking warm up and 5 minutes walking cool down for a total of about 2 miles, give or take. I am running a little bit under a 15-minute mile, and that's really good. That was my goal, to get under 15 minutes, and that is not on flat ground. I live in the mountains, as you all know, and I climb about 300 feet during that 2 miles or a mile and a half or whatever. Just running uphill is hard. Of course, then I get to turn around and run back down the hill, which is a little easier and harder in other ways. So hill running is a little difficult. I need to get out and train on some flat ground because I have targeted a 5K coming up on September 8th, sponsored by Blue Cross Blue Shield of North Carolina and my Carolina Hurricanes. So I definitely want to do that race. I haven't signed up for it yet, but I will, and I need to train for it. The fact that the race is down in Raleigh means that it's going to be hot, so I need to start training in the hotter part of the days here in the mountains so that I can get used to the temperature, and I need to find time to go on a flatter course. So I may have to start, there's a greenway in Boone where I work. I may have to start going there after work once a week or something just to get used to running on a flatter terrain. So a couple weeks ago I was running on my old shoes. I've been running on the Brooks Pure Flow 2s, so that's been my shoe of choice. And my knees and my hips started to ache, and I knew that meant it was time for new shoes. So last weekend I had my husband, well, I didn't have him drive me there. He and I went down to Hickory. It's a town about an hour and a half away from here, and there's a specialty running store there called Fleet Feet. I went and picked up some new running shoes. I got the Brooks Pure Flow 2s. They don't make the first Pure Flows anymore. They discontinued those and they replaced them with these. Here's a picture of them. They're crazy. They're crazy shoes. They're like bright pinky orange, and they've got these like crazy black lines all over them, and it reminds me of a tribal tattoo or something. I was really worried when they discontinued the Pure Flows because I heard really mixed reviews on the Pure Flow 2s. For me, they work perfect. They feel just like the other ones. I had no problem at all. Not sure why other runners have had an issue with them, and it's mostly runners who were already running on the Pure Flows that didn't like the Pure Flow 2s. People who had been running on a completely different shoe, almost 100% liked the Pure Flow 2s. I don't know. I love them. They're great. I've run a couple, 3 times on them now. No problems at all. No blisters, no break-in period, nothing. They're great. So if you have a specialty running store near you, I highly recommend you go. I didn't pay any more for my shoes there than I would have paid at a local sporting goods store. Even looking on Amazon and Zappos, I wouldn't have paid any more or any less. I wouldn't have paid any less online than I had to pay at this specialty running store, where they measured my foot and watched my walk, watched my gait, and, looked at my old shoes to see what the wear pattern was to make sure I was wearing the proper kind of shoe. They're awesome. I love them. Love them. If you have a Fleet Feet or another running store near you, go check them out, seriously. Um, and the coolest part is I know it's silly, but I always feel kind of big and clumsy when I go into a shop like that because I'm starting to learn and realize that runners come in all shapes and sizes. But it seems like the serious runners and all the pictures in the running magazines and all the you only see pictures of these tall, slender, beautiful women and men as runners wearing tight little spandex things, and I am so not that girl. And I had no problem finding like clothes that fit me. I bought a pair of winter running pants on half off because it's the middle of summer right now. Um, it wasn't even extra large. It was just large. Woohoo! Usually, like in athletic stores, sometimes I'm in like a triple X. I mean, it's silly. I guess that's my soapbox for the day, is that I just wish that fitness companies would market to people of all shapes and sizes and not just one demographic. I think it's important for those of us who aren't society's idea of the perfect body to see other people out there working out, breaking a sweat, even if, we've got a little extra weight on us or we're not perfect or anything like that. I think that's so important that we see each other. That's why I changed my Ravatar to the picture of me running, because even though I am definitely not what you think of when you think about somebody who runs, I still love doing it. And I think it's important that other people see that, because I want to encourage everybody who wants to try it to give it a try. I hope that makes sense. End of soapbox. All right, that's going to be it for the training room. Let's get into some hockey talk in the third period, shall we? Time to drop the puck for the third period and a little bit of hockey talk. The last time I talked to y'all, it was hot and heavy into the playoffs, and there was some great hockey going on, and that hockey continued. It was a great playoffs this year. I enjoyed almost every moment of it. Um, I hope that you all got to watch some of it, if not all of it. It was just really good hockey. But in the end, the Chicago Blackhawks won the Stanley Cup. They defeated the Boston Bruins, who are my second favorite team in the NHL after the Carolina Hurricanes. I was a little sad about the Bruins losing. However, I've seen them win a Stanley Cup before. And also, our good friend Joe, who my husband works with, is a huge Blackhawks fan, and he actually managed to get up to Boston for Game 6 when the Blackhawks won the Cup. So we were so happy and excited for him. We thought that was the coolest thing ever, that he got to be there for that. So that's how it all ended up this year, and I'm so excited already. I'm already asking, is it October yet? Because that's when the next hockey season starts. All of you other hockey fans out there totally know what I mean, I'm sure. Also, since we last talked, the draft happened. That happened June the 30th, and the draft is where the NHL teams all put dibs on the incoming class of 18-year-olds. So, Carolina Hurricanes had the 5th overall pick, and they picked up Elias Lindholm. He's a center, and he has a very bright future ahead of him. He is 18 years old. He's currently playing in one of the European leagues. I believe it's the Swiss Elite League. And his options for this coming season are either to remain with his European team, or if he makes the Carolina Hurricanes roster, he can come and play in the NHL this coming season. The AHL, which is the minor league for the NHL, has an age limit. You have to be 20 years old, so he couldn't come and play for the AHL. He would have to go back to Europe if he does not make the Hurricanes. So that was just a little interesting tidbit there. The kids that are playing in the junior league in Canada, they would have to go back to play for their junior teams if they don't make the major league roster. So the AHL, you got to be 20. I believe that's right, Jenny. If you're watching this and I'm wrong, let me know. I should have looked it up before I started. The other major thing that happened since the last time I podcasted is that free agency started. And this was just last Friday, the 5th, July the 5th, free agency started. Free agency is when the contracts are up for hockey players. So anybody whose contract was up this year as of July 5th at noon was available for other teams to pick up. So we have several players whose contracts have not been renewed, and I'm waiting to see what happens with them. And we picked up 2 players on the 5th in free agency, and I'm sorry for all the noise in the background. I know I keep saying that, but it's just one of those days in the neighborhood. It's pouring down rain and there are children running around outside my window. I don't know. I guess, I don't know. Anyway, back to free agency. The first player we picked up in free agency is Mike Komisarek. He is a defenseman. Did I already say that? Well, he is. He's a defenseman. And we were in need of a good defenseman. And this guy, from what I've seen and heard, is going to do a really good job with us. He apparently has had a hard time with his current team, or with his former team now, the Maple Leafs, but we're all very hopeful that he'll do well with the Carolina Hurricanes. The other one, which has got me all excited, most of you know I love goalies. It's my favorite position to watch. I love the athleticism, and it's just really fun to watch a goalie play the game. We picked up another goalie. We have picked up Anton Khudobin from the Boston Bruins. So I'm really excited. Heard good things about him, and I'm interested to see what this will mean for Justin Peters, who I thought would have the backup job with Cam Ward this year, but we'll see what happens with that. That is going to be it for the Hockey Talk this week. I am going to go ahead and wrap it up now and try and get this podcast posted. I hope that you all have a wonderful week. Until next time, may all of your projects and your favorite hockey teams stay out of the penalty box. Bye-bye.